Welcome everyone to today's podcast. And I have got a repeat guest joining us today. We actually spoke during the pandemic, and that's how we first met. And I really wanted to get Christine Miller back on to talk about risk and risk management. But let me give you a little bit of background on my guest. My guest today is Christine Miller. Chris has decades of experience in all aspects of emergency, business continuity, and risk management, including enterprise risk management. She's a consultant, emergency, and business continuity manager. And for the past 20 years, she's specialized in full cycle business continuity management, organizational resilience, facilitating simulation exercises, and after action reviews. From January 2022 to June 2025, Chris worked as a short-term consultant with the World Bank Group in Timor-Leste, the Kingdom of Eswatini, formerly Swaziland, and the South Asia region countries, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Nepal, India, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and Thailand. So not only do I know Chris as being my guest, but I also follow her on Facebook. And it's like every day she's off to another country. So that's why I wanted to bring her on to give a global aspect as well. More recently, she has been consulting with the Asian Development Bank on a tabletop simulation exercise on some of the possible challenges from an earthquake in Manila. Other clients have ranged in size from 2 to more than 100,000 employees. She has worked with governments and large corporates such as News Corp, not-for-profits, and governments in Australia and beyond. Chris has received several awards for her work in business continuity and emergency management. Chris has presented at more than 100 conferences, facilitated hundreds of workshops and other training. I think it's probably closer to thousands by now, Chris, both in person and virtually. In 2023, Chris became the first woman to volunteer to become the national president and chair the board of the Australasian Institute of Emergency Services, and in its soon to be 50-year history. And Chris has worked very hard and has a number of credentials after her name. So it is AMBCI, CABCF, FAIES, F full stop ISRM, and she can explain to those a little bit more about what they do. But it is important when you spend so much time in, educating and developing your own personal journey. It's important to acknowledge that. So, Chris, welcome so much. I'm so glad you've been able to join me today.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. It's great to be back with you and your listeners, viewers, and to
Perfect.
share some insights.
It will be. And, since we've spoken, this is my seventh year now. We've got a very strong global audience, both in America, Europe, and of course, here in beautiful Australia, both on Spotify and YouTube. If you're watching this, you'll be able to watch us on there and see the full video. But of course, we're on Apple and all the other podcast platforms. I'm actually going to be putting up a PowerPoint as well that Chris has shared with me, and I'll also put a link to that. So if you're not seeing it on Spotify, on Megaphone, or through YouTube, you will have the link in the show notes. So Chris, if let's start this conversation. And as I mentioned, you do travel a lot and you've mentioned how globally that you work. Can you just provide an outline of your work from when we last spoke during the pandemic and where you are today, and where does it take you both in Australia and globally? Because, you certainly travel to some fascinating places.
Indeed, indeed. And the first time I went to Africa, people said, "Oh, did you see any animals?" And I said, "Unfenced stock." And my colleague said, "You don't need to go to Africa to see unfenced stock. We have that in Australia too." So you can always rely on your colleagues to pull you down a peg or two. So the second time I went to Africa, I did go and see some African animals and many elephants, a couple of lions, some zebras, you name it, the usual things you'd expect to see. And
Yeah.
a lot of rhinos, which
Oh,
is wonderful because the park I was in the 1980s, the rhinos were practically shot out by the poachers. So the
nice.
king of Eswatini took over the park. So now it's a royal national park, and you'd be sort of shot at dawn. Quite literally, they have patrols. When I
Wow.
arrived, to stay at an interesting little place with no electricity. So I'm sure some of your hospitality providers would go, what? No electricity. It did have water, and it did have hot water, which was very nice
Oh, that was
after
good.
a day of safaring about. So, yes, it's taken me to many interesting places. Timor-Leste, there's so much damage there. You could spend
Mm,
vast sums of money in trying to repair it, but the people are nevertheless, like in Africa, because I was working with low and middle income countries with the World
mm.
Bank. They're such generous people. They would give you their last cup of tea.
Yes,
That's
yes.
hospitality. I
Yeah.
mean, they're a lesson to us all in the hospitality business
Mm,
about generosity and kindness.
mm.
So my travels have taken me to meet a lot of hospitable and generous people.
Yes, which is wonderful. And this is this conversation we're going to have today about risk and risk management, particularly in the hospitality industry, but it covers all industries because it is very key. So, Chris, I can either go straight into that first question about, well, what is risk and risk management, or I can put up the slides. What would you like me to do?
Well, you might jump onto the slide and go to the
Perfect.
second slide because I've actually got some explanations.
Wonderful. So my viewers will be able to see that now. And Chris, you can see it as well.
Yes, yes, and we'll go
Perfect.
to the next slide. There
Hmm.
it is. There is an international standard risk management guideline. It was written in or published in 2018. And some of your older viewers, such as ourselves, might be familiar that we had an Australian standard for risk before we had, well, Australian and New Zealand standard for risk, which magically became the international standard. And the people on the committee, surprise, surprise, were overrun with Australians and New Zealanders because we'd been doing this in our businesses for a long time. So
Yes.
the International Standards Organisation went, "Hey, you lot, help us write this standard because you've had some real practice in doing this."
Mm.
And I understand that you've got some gaming colleagues possibly on the call.
Yes.
So risk, importantly, in this context, it's not about chance or probability of loss. It's more about uncertainty and
Mm.
how this impacts on your business objectives, both negatively and positively. A lot of people think risk is all in the negative space.
Mm.
And for an emergency manager, it often seems to be all in the negative space. But increasingly, there are positive consequences of uncertainty that could lead you into opportunities. I was doing some work on Kodak and the digital camera.
Mm.
Kodak actually had an engineer that developed a portable, compact digital camera. They even put a patent on it, but
Gosh.
they didn't market it.
Mm.
And this dates back to 1975. And as we say, the rest is history. I've got a very fancy digital camera for client photos with incidents. And of course, we all have our camera in our pocket, the phone.
Yes.
So here's a great example of where something that was seen as negative at the time by Kodak, they didn't want to market the digital camera
Mm.
because they thought it'd take away from their film processing business.
Mm.
Oh boy, wasn't that an opportunity missed?
Yes, very much so. And we've seen that time and time again, haven't we, with businesses? And the other, one there would be Nokia. Nokia were one of our top performers of cell phones. I love the Nokia. I thought it was fantastic. Great opportunity. And then Apple came in and once again, the rest is history. And even though they are still there, they lost that share of the market. And it's that risk of, well, yeah, it had that massive negative impact.
Yes, and it's tricky for businesses to balance between the negative and the positive.
Yes.
I
Mm,
mean, Kodak invested in developing a compact digital camera,
mm.
but they saw it as a negative when it had been developed because it would take away from their other business.
Yes.
Whereas if they'd been able to sort of balance, like the scales of justice sort of balance
Mm,
between their existing business, which was film developing, and the future business, which is clearly in the digital space,
mm.
they might have been able to bring both of them forward. And
Yes.
as one sort of took off, they could move out of one part of the business and emphasize another part of the business.
Mm,
But if you don't understand enterprise risk management, which is something I'm doing quite a lot of work in with clients now, then you'll miss those opportunities. They'll sail by. So
yes.
as you say, like Nokia and Kodak, big businesses that were
Mm,
well run and governed and they probably had excellent boards, but They miss the opportunity.
Yes.
And this is what we're about today. It's not just about the negative. It could be about the next opportunity.
Yes. Perfect. So, what is risk management in business?
Yes, we've got another little slide there. I'm a great fan of Wikipedia, so I said, well, what does Wikipedia say? Risk management is. And in the business context, it's about methods, processes used to manage risks,
Mm,
which you may see as threats or hazard, but to seize opportunities. And only yesterday I was reading a paper by one of my colleagues who was saying that resiliency is about opportunities.
mm,
And in my business continuity practice, a lot of people say, oh, yes, well, we want to return to business as usual. And I often say, but do you?
mm.
Or do you want to bounce forward? When I talk to a lot of IT people, senior IT people, they say only a lunatic would set up the IT like this again because so much has moved forward. We've got a lot of stuff in the cloud.
Mm,
We used to have two physical data centers. Now, increasingly, people have no physical data centers. They
mm.
leave it to other people to have the physical data centers, and they just, although I do hear a lot of magical thinking about the cloud as if as though it's something up there. No, no, no. It's actually a data center that somebody else owns, and with um, Amazon and the like, you're probably paying for 6 destinations of your data to be safely protected, and
Yes.
that's what we all want.
Mm,
So don't see risk only in the negative.
mm.
Just also be thinking, keeping an eye out for that opportunity, that digital camera, that change in the phone space, or whatever else it might be that could take your business forward in leaps and bounds.
Yes. Chris, how do you see AI impacting risk and risk management in businesses?
Oh, well, time will tell how it unfolds. I think we're still at the innovation phase. I don't think we fully articulated just what it could do for us.
Mm,
So we're perhaps sort of like, can we make a compact digital camera? Can we make a smaller, more portable phone? Can we make a phone that takes photos in
yes.
reasonable quality? I think we're a bit like that. We're still on the what can it do for our businesses? And I'm not sure that we fully articulated all that it could do for our
Mm,
businesses at this early stage. I think we're still sort of feeling our way, and in many businesses, cautiously, and rightly so. I attended a presentation earlier this week from one of my Scottish colleagues. Mm, as much as I love my Scottish relatives, my grandfather was from Scotland. Yeah, with David, you sometimes feel like you need subtitles, but
Particularly after the work's finished and they're having a few whiskies.
indeed. But anyway, amongst the subtitles, David was like me. I use AI quite a lot. I receive, as you might expect, since I do country business, very long reports from many colleagues who no doubt work tirelessly to prepare them,
Mm,
but I don't have the tireless time to read them. So I run Adobe summaries on a lot of the
right.
lengthier reports. And
Mm,
then the beauty of that is I'll take, say, 70 pages, turn it into 10 or less, and then I can go through and it produces headings and dot points so I can look for the things that are of particular interest. And if I want to go back to the original report and look at the full scale detail, I
mm,
know where to look and I can go there and just zero in on the pieces of sometimes very lengthy reports that I would need to look at in more
yes.
detail. So even me, I'm using AI a lot. And I think many people don't realize we've been using AI in the background a
Yes.
lot
Mm.
for a long time. So, for instance, my bank has announced to me they want to cancel my credit card and give me another one. Oh, lovely. I can't wait for all that inconvenience. But what happened when I logged on to their call center? Um, I got the concierge, who's some AI butler, Alfred or something, and to take all my sort of personal particulars so that when I actually got to the human, we didn't have to waste so much time about, what's your name, what's your date
Yes.
of birth, where do you live, all that stuff. It could be captured by an AI avatar.
Mm. And I think that's the thing. It enhances our opportunity to expedite things, but also, I think you made a really good point there, Chris. You might have a 70-page report. And let's be honest, when it's something as big as that and as riveting as that I am, as sure as it is, there are times you'd probably start to nod off or your brain would start to wander off. And you may, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself here, and you may miss something. So summarizing it through AI, that gives you 10 pages and it's highlighted, it's really making it very focused for you. So, yeah, AI and risk management can certainly assist and perhaps provide those opportunities, as you said, but also to really make it quite obvious where those risk factors may be as well.
Well, and also scanning incident reports, for
Yes.
instance.
Mm.
It might help you pick up themes if you write the prompts in a way that will be looking for particular themes. I do a lot of
Yes.
work in my after action reviews on what's called lessons management. So
Mm.
we're looking at observations, and often when there's a major disaster, there are thousands of observations,
Yes.
which we
Yes.
then need to coalesce into themes.
Mm.
And we can do that much faster with AI. So there's a lot of work in the emergency management space in AI. We're doing real-time digital mapping. A lot of
Hmm.
our flood maps and fire maps are complete nonsense now. They don't make any sense at all,
Mm.
because particularly in the flooding, as there's more development and more concrete
Mm.
and more housing and more this and so on, concrete, tar, other things, that used to might have been grasslands or other things that absorb the water that are now gone, the runoff has increased, so the flood potential has increased. So
Yes.
the old flood maps are just they're nice to have, but really, what use are they? If
Yes.
you're in the response phase, you need real-time mapping now,
Mm.
and particularly for firefighting as well, real-time mapping. So I mean, I'm joining you from Jervis, beautiful Jervis Bay.
Mm.
Enjoy the view of Huskisson there behind me. At one point, a couple of years back, with the Currowan fire, we were 8 kilometres from a major fire that was a campaign fire that took 74 days to put out.
Mm.
So, and there'd never been a history of a fire like that in that
Yes.
area. So there was no previous data we could use.
Mm.
So AI is doing a lot of work both at the response end, but also in the learning end. In
Yes.
that, when you get so many observations, insights, lessons identified, and to coalesce those into lessons that you can learn with
Mm.
recommendations, things that you can do differently next time.
Yes, yeah. And it's learning, isn't it? That's what risk management is about. It's, certainly averting or, avoiding risk, but also learning by what you're putting in place and what may eventuate, and then studying that and looking at what those patterns are. Chris, if we can look at the hospitality sector itself, can you suggest some ideas about why would hospitality businesses invest more time and resources in risk management?
So I've already covered off on this, Michelle. You're ahead of the curve, because it helps you identify proactively. I mean, often people discover the risk the hard way when
Mm.
some catastrophic thing has happened. But if you're doing good risk and analysis work, risk identification, bringing more of your team in, this
Mm.
is something we were just discussing before we started the recording, is that most hospitality businesses, and I would assume gaming probably has a very large cadre of helpful people, they often know before management
Mm.
where the problems may be, but
Yes.
also where the opportunities are. I
Mm.
remember when I did a diploma of management, we were talking about a company that made a sort of helpful suggestion capability come to life. So they said to all of their employees, if you can give us something that saves the company $100,000, we'll give you 10% as a sort of bonus.
Wow.
Oh, okay. Guess what? They had a whole lot of suggestions, one of which saved them millions of dollars.
Wow, gosh.
And that was from a storeman, not any kind of executive, not
Mm.
even a middle manager, just a fellow that worked in their warehousing and store area who saw a way of packaging up some of their products in a way that was much cheaper.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
this was a global business. So he saw that at his location, at his warehouse, and once they implemented it globally, it literally saved them millions.
Gosh.
One of the vice presidents brought him in and said, "Well, I know we promised you 10%." And this was a fellow of modest means, so they came to a good deal. He got a generous bonus, and they got a wonderful idea. And this comes back to that opportunities. If you bring people into the tent, if you treat them as adults and people that are resource people, for you to better understand your risk profile before you learn it the hard way, or while there's opportunities that they may be seeing that you are not seeing, like this gentleman with the packaging. He packaged up all this stuff day after day, and in that time, his brain was switching on, thinking, geez, we could do this differently. Well, what else might there be out there, like other than the packaging, when you haven't asked? So I encourage many of my clients to bring their team into these discussions, when you have a corporate planning day or a team meeting,
Mm.
whatever you might do to sort of confer with your colleagues, is give them a few minutes on this. See what
Yes.
they come up with. You
Mm.
might actually be very surprised, like that company that
Mm.
millions of bucks that saved them in packaging. Wow, that was a surprise.
It
But they had the good sense to ask their people.
Yes, yes, yeah. And ask the people that are there on the front line. And I know, a lot of my clients, it is taking that time and they learn so much from them because, we can sit and put out policies and procedures, but it's not until they actually do it physically, are they working, but also providing feedback from the members, the guests, their customers, clients, and what are they are also seeking. Because I think many businesses, well, all businesses at some time, we all feel that this is what our customer needs. But is it what we believe the customer needs, or is it actually what the customer needs? And having somebody and having those conversations with frontline team members can certainly, as you gave that fantastic example there, Chris, that opportunity for perhaps a really simple idea that they may seem simple can make such a major impact and continue to make such a positive impact as well.
And as I pointed, it helps your staff feel like this is a well-run business. I'm
Yes.
not just some chink in the armor here. Who
Mm.
cares? But I can actually input, like that fellow, the warehouse guy. I can actually input to the business to make it better because
Yes.
I've never met too many employees that actually want to make the business fail.
No,
Huh?
no, no.
No, really. The majority of employees I've met is actually want to make the business work better.
Yes, yes, yeah.
And back to the AI example, you see, somebody sent me a 500 and something page report recently. Okay.
Yeah, great.
Even Adobe's AI summary thing kicked up its toes. I mean, this is too much for me.
So
Yeah, it's
AI
too
does
much of
have a
me too.
human feeling.
But the beauty of bringing your team into these discussions about risk, both what are our threats and what are our opportunities,
Mm,
can make them feel more like part of the team
yes.
because they're invaluable stakeholders in your
Mm,
business. They want your business to succeed. They don't want to be looking for another job. Huh?
that's right.
Well,
Yes. Yeah.
they want to feel like they're part of the team, that it's a well-run business, that their ideas are valued and considered. And this is a great example of doing that. And it
Yes.
protects your business because often they see the express train coming down the tunnel before you do.
Mm, that's right. Well before you do, because they're there on the ground. They're the eyes and the ears. And sometimes it can be through the direct involvement or through observation and then making that, putting forward that idea. And I agree wholeheartedly with you, Chris. It provides the employee an opportunity, yes, to be heard, to be seen, because some of them aren't those people that are going to be, hey, I've got this great idea. So when we open the conversation and give them permission to say, look, we really want to hear your thoughts, can provide that opportunity, which is fantastic, but it also, to me, attracts further employees because when they hear about what you're doing, if it's helping the community or it is something that it is making that product more sustainable or reducing waste, recycling, whatever, then that will attract. And we've seen that more and more now, particularly with Gen Z, but also, other generations as well, but particularly Gen Z, who are our biggest cohort over the next decade as both customers and employees. They are seeking businesses that reflect their values. And to me, what you're saying
True.
is a value that would hold very strongly with many of them. And therefore, they would look at that. And I can see you've got there creating those values for your stakeholders would attract them to seek out those places of employment.
Exactly. And continue in those places of employment. I was
Yes.
been doing some work on reputation for boards and senior managers. I mean, even a lower level staff member costs you $100,000 to replace.
Yes. Yeah. People don't realize.
By the time you've paid out, whatever leave entitlements,
Mm.
long service leave, whatever it might be, and you've gone into the recruitment process, you've had interviews and all this stuff. It takes a lot of money, a
Yes.
lot of time,
Mm.
and sometimes you recruit well, sometimes, oh dear, why do we think that that person was going to work well with the team? And also trying to find someone that fits your team, particularly
Yes.
if you're a small business.
Mm.
You might be looking for someone that has a particular set of skills to dovetail in with your team, and
Mm.
they might be hard to find.
Yes.
So, yeah, so we did pulled up some data, my colleague Maureen Inglis and I, and yes, even for the lowest staff member, you will be looking at least $100,000 in replacement costs.
Mm.
And as the person went more senior through the organisation, we were looking at half the mil for some of the board and senior executives. This is a lot of money. You
Yes.
really want to hang on to your staff.
Yeah.
You want to invest in your staff. You
Yes.
want them to accept your values and say, well,
Mm.
this is a company whose values match mine.
Yes, which is to me is absolutely the foundation of. I did a program yesterday for a career from what was it? A classroom to career for hospitality TAFE students here in New South Wales, and that's what I was saying to them. Your foundation, your values have to be aligned. That there has to be that congruence with values, and it's important to everyone. But to really seek out that workplace because when your values are aligned, it's just harmonious, isn't it? Like people that they've got that buy-in, they're being seen, they feel like they're a part of something, they've got a purpose, and they're all working towards that one goal, that one vision. So, Chris, what type of risk do
And just quickly, aren't
sorry,
they going to be
yes.
much, much better? Say if they're on your reception staff, aren't they going to be a much happier staff member greeting your guests and
Yes.
trying to bring them into the fold of these are our values, this is the team.
Yes.
You're staying with us, but you're a welcomed guest.
Yes, very much so. Yes, and we're loving having you come and stay with choosing that company that they're working for. What type of risks do hospitality businesses need to prepare for to prevent or reduce the impact of catastrophes? Now, the last time we spoke was during the pandemic, and as all my clients know, it was that overnight shift and of just closing down. I've had one example, I had a regional venue, they were open and they were closed, compared to the metropolitan ones, various different states. And in one scenario, this bride was just about to alight from her wedding car to come into the venue on a Saturday evening for her wedding reception, and the CEO was told immediately you had to close the venue due to that new COVID practice. And so he had to go out and meet her and said, it's closed. And it was devastating as well, not only just for the customers and members and guests, but it was devastating for the industry because we employ tens of thousands of people when it comes to hospitality industry. When we look at it so broad, I think there's over 1.4 million in here in Australia alone that have will work in the industry up until early this year. So it's a growing industry. So preparing for that, and I think we're all on that. Well, what's next? How do we, what do we do? I think a lot of clubs that a lot of my clients, they got teams in and they were repainting the venues, they were moving things around. Everybody wanted to feel like they were part of something and what they could and could not do when it was open. But what it allowed for many of them was to stop, and actually look at the policies and procedures, something that we hadn't done, whether it was something as simple as promotions or actual how we implement various legislation. But can you give us some ideas about, well, how do they prepare or prevent for future, situations if they were to reoccur?
Absolutely. Let's look at the next slide.
Hmm.
See, we're in a very volatile environment, and as you pointed out, 1 minute everything's fine, next minute we've got COVID. So some people say, oh, well, there's no point in doing risk management because it's heroic. We're never going to capture everything. Of course, you won't capture everything. But does that mean we go, oh, no, 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 just cover our eyes and hope for the best? What the hell sort of business is that?
Mm,
We need to be mindful that we're in a world that's very volatile, very uncertain,
mm,
very complex, as we certainly discovered with COVID. We'll come back to that in a moment.
mm,
Ambiguous, things that used to be fine, like that lovely bride
mm,
coming to her wedding reception. Oh, fine, hop out of the car, take the photos,
mm,
just have some champagne. Well, no, no, you can't do that anymore because there's COVID. So, 1 minute we've got that kind of world,
mm.
a welcoming um, property that can't wait to have the bride. I'm sure everybody was excited, the
Yes.
wedding. Oh, it's always, even if it's not your wedding,
Mm,
you're excited for the people, and your guests are probably a bit on the excited side too. To great disappointment. So the
mm,
swings and roundabouts are enormous, and this leads us into a disruptive world we find ourselves in, which is this VUCAT idea. But if we scroll to the next slide, you'll see that there's a long list of things that you might need to consider. And
mm-hmm.
I mentioned that I'm doing a lot of work in the enterprise risk space, which is usually with senior people with chief in their name or some other fancy title. Um, but I decided today that I'd focus in on three things that I thought were directly related to hospitality, gaming, tourism, those kind of businesses that you deal with a lot. Because operational, and we'll look at that in a sec, reputational, we've sort of covered on that already. If your staff are looking all grumpy and unhappy and the cleaners sort of, oh, why do I want to clean this room?
Mm,
Um, why do I want to sweep the hallway? It reflects badly on your business. And infrastructure, and I'll come back to that in a moment
mm,
about various things you're dependent on. If they fail, you've got a problem. So if we scroll to the next slide, we'll see something about operational risks. And back to COVID, we all
mm.
remember the great toilet paper wrestle.
I've
Yeah.
still got some of the original toilet paper in my garage. My husband keeps it. I was in a conference in Adelaide and they met, it was a professional speakers conference and everybody's phones were just lighting up and it was just, people were just, they were just heartbroken because they were losing so much business. And that's when they said, and I rang my husband back in Sydney. I said, quick, because he's a few years older than me. I said, get in, but I grabbed some toilet paper and I went to I think it was a department or supermarket in Adelaide and I got 18 rolls. And so then I went and bought another suitcase to put them in and I've still got them. It's a memento.
Yes, well, unfortunately, it wasn't very funny at the time, and we
No, it
we we
wasn't.
recall that terrible incident where we had women
Yeah,
wrestling over the last sort of pack of toilet paper, and some people delivering flowers that looked like that were actually toilet roll
it was
because that
ridiculous.
was actually a great gift during COVID.
Yeah.
I'll give you a few more toilet rolls.
A number of our clients, because the venue shut down, they actually had online raffles and they were raffling the toilet paper because they've got had large stocks of it and particularly those big round wheels of it. So instead of bingo and winning a cash prize, it was a couple of rolls of toilet paper. So I'll let you proceed. But then we could see the humour at a time of
Mm.
great shock. Mm.
And indeed it was. And I do quite a lot of work with the Global Supply Chain Council, which has 260,000 plus members in Asia Pacific, but also in other jurisdictions.
Mm.
And of course, they were in a terrible bind. You think that the hospitality business had a bit of a problem with toilet paper. Imagine you're in the business of delivering everything,
Yes. Mm.
and all of a sudden, um, we'll take Australia for example. Our air freight, because normally air freight was passengers on top, air freight underneath. We
Mm.
didn't actually have a lot of air freighters. We didn't need them
Mm.
because we had Australians are like cockroaches, were to be found everywhere in the world. At any one time in my old government work, we had of our 27 million Australians or thereabouts, we had at least 1 million of them offshore.
Yes, we do love to travel.
Yes, we do. So there was no particular problem. Passengers on top, cargo underneath, and everybody went. It all went swimmingly
Mm,
until we closed the borders.
mm.
Oh, and then we shut down so many flights that our air cargo rates jumped not 20%, 20 times.
Wow, gosh, horrific. Mm,
Imagine you need something in your hospitality business that has to come in by air cargo. And once
mm,
upon a time, it cost this amount. Now, X by 20 times.
mm.
You really want to need it.
Yes, yeah. Mm,
But it could be PPE, it could be hand gel for you clean, it could be any number of things that you have to have in a
yes.
pandemic.
Mm.
And one of my friends and colleagues became, I called her the Tsarina of cargo. She actually decided what was coming in and what was going out on every flight.
Wow, gosh, what a
Uh,
responsibility.
it certainly was. She
Mm,
she was an air vice marshal in the Air Force, so she was very well trained in the logistics space. And thank goodness Sir Margaret stayed. He
mm,
kept us all safe and kept things moving through air cargo as best as she could. Sometimes it was taking up some space on the air cargo area of a plane. Other times it was leasing the entire aircraft. It was all sorts of crafty things. Her and her staff of 40 saved the country.
yes,
They
yeah,
brought in the vaccines. They did lots of important things for us, all of which we would be in a lot worse shape had they not been there
yes. Mm,
and used their expertise. So we might joke about these things, but it was a very serious business.
mm,
So 20 times, not 20%, 20 times
mm.
what air cargo before COVID and the border shutdowns cost. If you wanted a to put it on a container like the Ever Given here with all these
Mm.
nice containers, that was going to cost you 4 times what it used to cost you. And that's if you could get a ship. And if you wanted the whole ship, again, if you could get one, that would cost you 6 times what it used to cost.
Wow. It's just,
So is it any surprise that a lot of our supply chain disruptions during COVID, and not all of it is washed through the system, by the way. If you
no.
look at the pre and post COVID freight prices, we're
Mm,
still up a bit. Uh, haven't fully washed through the system. Now you're running a hospitality business or a gaming facility or tourism or whatever it is you do. You're going to need a lot of stuff,
yes. Mm,
really.
mm,
And it's not just toilet paper that we were sort of joking about. You need a lot of product
mm.
to to provide an adequate service in that sort of business.
Yes.
And when that product is jeopardized because supply chains are stopped by the government or stopped by somebody's ship going sideways in the Suez Canal
Mm.
and adding 10, according to my global supply chain colleagues, another 10 to 14 days sailing time to sail
Wow.
around Africa. When
Yes.
this happened, there were 300 vessels at either end of the Suez Canal, becalmed, waiting.
And
Hmm.
just got
And
stuck.
by the way, this didn't happen because the ship's crew or captain was some idiot. What happened, if you look at the vessel, the Suez Canal was actually designed in the 1920s. They never had a vessel this size in
Mm.
those days. And the way the containers were packed on carefully, which is the correct way to do it, there was a windy day in the desert and it became a sail. So the wind
Oh,
pushed the
wow.
vessel sideways, and that's when it blocked the Suez Canal.
Gosh. I just another another risk that you couldn't foresee. However, I'm sure they've learned from it.
Absolutely. But
Yes.
imagine there's some valuable product on that ship that
Yes.
you wanted.
Yes. Yeah. Mm.
It was stuck there for 17 days.
Yes.
Oh dear.
Mm. It's
Or more recently, we've had these problems with airports.
mm.
Now, what if, say, your property is expecting a group to come
Mm.
from somewhere, and they booked out your property. You've got a modest size hotel, and you've got a big group coming in, except their flight's cancelled.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, chances are you've possibly brought on additional staff for your restaurant.
Mm,
You might have brought on some more cleaning staff because you might, most businesses, I understand, run on about 40% or more occupancy to break even. So you may have brought on some more casual staff.
mm,
All these things, no, they're not flying.
yes.
And we had this with the Collins Aerospace thing recently, CrowdStrike, when it decided to do all sorts of weird, wonderful things to Microsoft products.
Mm,
Heathrow, when the power went out for 36 hours, nothing to worry about.
yes.
But what if they're coming to your property? What if they've block booked your property and all of a
Mm.
sudden the flights are cancelled? Then what?
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, Chris, it's that domino effect, isn't it? You may look at that and go, oh, well, yeah, I'm not in Heathrow, so it doesn't affect me. But then it's thinking about, well, wait on, yes, flights can't get in. That means it's going to impact on, the small tourist operators, the cafes, the Ubers, the taxis, it impact. And then, of course, definitely the accommodation or the restaurants. And it just continues that form of risk. So it's thinking about, well, how can we prepare for it or at least work out what we're going to do? I think, we saw that, didn't we,
Hmm.
when you're talking about sanitization hand gels. I think there were a lot of distilleries that were, particularly gin distilleries, that became distilleries of hand sanitizer here in Australia. But, and that's where, a bit of ingenuity works really well. But it's planning about what happens next when we go. So shall I move to the next example here of your
Yes,
slide?
indeed. And
Perfect.
just quickly, the plastic bottles. At one stage, the gin distilleries could do big bottles,
Mm,
but they couldn't do the little bottles, and
yes.
we couldn't even get the little bottles because they come from China.
Oh, right. Right.
Uh-oh.
Gosh.
So that's why we ended up with a lot of big bottles of hand sanitizer, and people
Mm,
were being told to keep your little bottles, you'll need to recycle them.
yeah.
So we were buying big bottles of hand sanitizer and pumping it into little bottles. Oh dear.
Mm. Which is
That's
probably
yet
a
another
really
COVID torture.
which is probably a good idea because we throw away a lot of those little bottles. But okay, so what have we got on this slide?
Yeah, reputational risk, that's a big one. I mean, we often say that you want people greeted. So imagine you turn up at your hotel and the staff are all, well, think about faulty towers. I don't know if that's translated in every country, but faulty towers is a very good example. How not to greet your guests.
Yes.
Um, and then of course, people will go, oh, I don't want to go back there. Well, I'll give you a real world example. My husband and I frequently go up to Brisbane. As you know, that's where my 90-year-old mother lives. And
Yes.
we stay at a property in Port Macquarie where we've stayed many times because it's convenient and convenient to the restaurant we like and so on and so on. The last time we stayed there, the toilet blocked
Mm,
and they couldn't fix it because it was on the weekend. Uh, and the toaster didn't work.
mm.
There was something the hell wrong with the toaster. So my husband tried to set fire to the oven and a griller or something. Not a good alternative. But after that, and after many visits, probably been at least half a dozen times we stayed there, there's new people running the show. And he's saying, I think we need to look for another place.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. And I don't think you'd be a whinger. You'd be pointing out, like, that's just something like go down to a shop and buy a toaster, replace it, put you into a different room. I mean, I'm sure there was a way around it. Yeah, some people don't handle it very well, do they, when they have a guest or a customer makes a complaint? I've actually just talked about it in my newsletter today. I stayed at a really big hotel here in Sydney. Service, the hotel was just unbelievable. But when I hopped in the shower yesterday morning or Wednesday morning, there was no shampoo, no conditioner, no shower gel. So, fortunately, like you, Chris, I do a lot of traveling. So I bought, the little ones that you get in country motels. So I was
Thank God for that.
yeah, able to do that, squeezing the soap out of the little plastic one, trying to find the tear opener with no glasses in the shower. But when we did check out, they said, of course, I hope you enjoyed your stay. And I said, look, we did, everything was absolutely beautiful. But I just want to highlight something. And immediately the manager was writing down notes, apologize, but didn't apologize, kept going, oh, well, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And actually just stopped and said, look, we do apologize. we'll take this matter up with housekeeping. Really appreciate your feedback, and wrote it down. I thought that's all I wanted. I didn't want to make a fuss. As I said, look, I'm in customer service. I know it's so important, but that's that reputation that they had that they could have, like what you've just experienced, well, you'll just have to find somewhere else. Or do they actually go, okay, we're going to fix that? And we're going to ensure that this won't happen again. Is it a policy? Is it a procedure? Is it another checklist? Has the staff been trained? Like it's all those little things that they'll now be able to identify because I kindly brought it to their attention. But what you had was just more of this attitude of, well, oh, you're just a complaining guest. That's not the way. That's not
Yes, or
service.
there's the old saying, the customer that complains is your friend,
Yes, yes, yeah.
because you can actually fix it if they tell you what was unsatisfactory.
Mm,
But if they go away and they put it on Facebook or whatever, Twitter.
mm,
I've done this a couple of times. I had trouble with American Airlines.
mm.
They destroyed a brand new case. I flew from Australia to LA. I pulled the case off the thing and it was fine. By the time it got to Phoenix, it was destroyed.
Mm. Mm.
It had these big bangs on it. You could actually see where someone had walked on it.
Gosh.
Hmm. I said once upon a time I was a police officer and fraud investigator, so maybe I look for evidence more than other people. But anyway, someone had walked on it. It had fallen off something. It had a big damage through the corner, and they'd walked on it. So I contacted them, and they said, "Oh, you'll have to leave the case with us." I said, "I'm traveling all over America. What am I
Yeah.
going to do?"
Mm.
Wasn't really very useful. Anyway, when it was all over and I got back to Australia with my banged up case, um, I put it on Twitter within 5 minutes because it was a Qantas book ticket with
Mm.
American. So I blamed Qantas. I said, well, I booked a ticket with you and then you put me on this useless airline where people
Yes.
walk on your case. And so within 5 minutes, I had Qantas and American people sending me direct messages through Twitter X or whatever we're calling it this week,
Mm.
um, very promptly.
Yes. Yes. But you.
Now, I only have about 2,000 followers on
Mm.
Twitter and 10,000 plus on LinkedIn, but they were right onto it. So their crisis manager communication team, oh God, we don't want this going viral. Oh,
Yes, yes, yeah. And the thing is you don't want to go on there to shame them, but you just want to think, I've done my very best, and why do I have to go to this length? And I think, all they say to clients, some people do put really poor reviews on there, and it's thinking, never, hide them, always respond to them because you don't know the person, what attitude they were in, or did they have an opportunity to speak. But I know my clients, will they say, look, please reach out, let us know through a private message, your phone number, come in and have a conversation. So, we appreciate you bringing this to my attention. And some do, but some people, it's just a gripe. But the fact is, you can't ignore it. As you said, every customer who has a complaint, it could be something very, very genuine and provide you an insight. And I also see it as risk management because they may have identified something that could be quite serious and could
yeah,
cause.
it's like damaged equipment or
Yes,
defective training of your staff. There was a
yes,
blueprint on my case.
yes,
Somebody walked on it. Well,
yes,
it might be nice if you encourage your staff to stop doing that.
yes, yes. Yeah,
But it was interesting in America. I phoned them and they told me I had to take it back to the airport at Phoenix, and I
mm,
was actually in Tucson, so that was a bit inconvenient.
yes.
So my friend and I we went to the airport early so that we could go to the desk as they asked me to do, and then I got this. You'll have to leave it. And what am I carrying around the country?
Yes. A couple of Coles shopping bags.
Oh yes, that's great. Yeah, yeah, those nice green bags that we like in Australia. Yeah, that'd be lovely. So I said, well, thank you. That's not very useful. So I gave up on them. I thought, oh, they're idiots.
Yes.
What use is this? Leave a case. You
Mm,
might get it back in 10 days. Well, I'm back in Australia by then.
that's right. Yep.
And what am I doing in the meantime? Using the
Yes.
green shopping bags. Anyway, but then I thought, no, I'm not letting them off the hook here. I think they've provided average service, and they're a big
Yes.
company, they could do better. So that's
Mm,
why I gave them the Twitter
mm,
experience, and I ended up with a check
mm.
quite quickly, and I ended up with a case manager from American who was a lovely woman who went out of her way to be helpful and available, and we made appointment times for phone calls to sort out the details and fill
Mm.
in the form and so on. And the Qantas people said, please keep us informed if there's a problem because, we partner with this airline, we value our joint reputation.
Yeah.
So there
And
you go. So it's both a bad news story and a good news story.
yes, yes, yeah. But your reputation certainly, even your reputation of a company brand, you may be a different venue of that brand, but if they've had a poor experience, then they'll bring that with them, or even a great experience. So that reputation is your whole branding, which is so very important. Let's look at the last one here, this
Yeah.
examples of
And just really
infrastructure.
quickly, a lot of
Yes,
contracts are written with goodwill into the
yes,
contract. So
mm,
you expect to hand that over. And of course,
yes.
data breaches and cyber attacks, oh no,
Oh
not
gosh.
that.
No, definitely not. So, examples of infrastructure?
Now, a lot of these are things you can do nothing about,
Mm,
but you should be aware of it.
yes.
So, do you think about things like having a generator?
Mm,
These days, if there's a problem with water, do you have water tanks? If you're renovating or building a new property, do you build it with water tanks now
mm,
in case? So there really are things to do. I was engaged by one client to look at road access for an aged care facility.
mm.
Lovely, nice views of the Indian Ocean at Karratha, lovely, really nice. Except if there was a spit of rain, as we would say in Australia, the road access went out.
Right. And for days, I would assume.
And we were going to put 300 people, 300 older people, some of whom couldn't self-evacuate,
Mm.
um, in a place where they couldn't get out. Luckily, there's always a plan B with me. Luckily, I looked at the Google Maps and I said, "Hey, this very nice view of the ocean and so on. You're actually quite close to the highway. Why don't you offer the council a bit more time?" So I said to them, "Well, looking quickly at Google Maps, you've got about 300 meters of extra road, and this was going to be a sort of like where my mother lives, a sort of villa." Place where they'd be making roads anyway for the
Yes.
people that lived on the property. I said, if you offer the council a little bit of extension out to the highway, this access problem goes away.
Yes. Mm.
So you'll go from a development that can't happen to a development that could happen.
Yes. Mm. By just looking
Mm,
at it here. The others you've got here is about food security, communications, health, disability services, childcare and aged care. We've got an aging population as we do globally, and banking and finance. So perhaps if we just look at that food security one, because that is very key in the hospitality industry.
of course. And so you could easily get some sort of problem in the food security place and your restaurant gets closed down and everyone
Mm.
thinks, oh, who want to go to that dirty place?
Yes.
Not a good look. And one of the reasons why I put health and disability and childcare and aged care, what if your staff have obligations?
Yes. Mm.
What if they're critical staff? I recall one where we had the CFO of an organisation who had small children. So we arranged for her to have childcare. So she didn't have to worry about the kids. The kids were well looked after because she was a single mother. She could come to the business and write lots of checks, so to speak, and during an incident and not worry about the kids.
Yeah, sometimes it takes that, doesn't it? It's just having that conversation and understanding how can we reduce the risk, so to speak, with their own personal lives in being able to do the role, potentially, in a very positive way that will assist the team, but also the community. So banking and finance, I think that's probably one of those areas that we perhaps we're all touched in some way. We're told constantly about scams. People calling you up. I think Chris, you're probably like me. You get multiple phone calls a day that says this is an online. There's a pattern here. It's a one of those calls and think, oh, how many do we have to get of those? But banking and finance is one of those areas that it's our money. And today there was actually a headline in one of the news services saying that Macquarie Bank was now going to be backing that failed superannuation fund. And one chap had said, he'd got the letter saying, well, his $150,000 will be returned to him as other clients of that fund as well, which is key because banking and finance is where we're told that we've got to put our money. And I know with my parents, because they were a lot older, my father was born during the Depression. It was very much of, keeping they lost their home and they only owed £70, and they lost their beautiful home because they couldn't get their money out of the bank. So, there's that age group who many of now are much senior veterans or have passed on that are, well, keep the money under the bed. But now we're told, oh, well, you can't use cash. It's got to be a card. So you've got to have your money in the bank. Where do we look there with risk management, Chris?
Oh, absolutely. And a friend of mine used to be the business continuity manager for Lloyd's Bank in the UK, in London. And she said every minute that her FPOS and ATMs, any sort of cash transfer or actual cash, was offline, cost them thousands of customers. They
Mm,
really worked out back to reputation. How many customers they would lose every minute it was down.
yes. Mm,
So, for instance, one of the things that banks do, you'll notice sometimes if you still go to the occasional ATM for real cash, um, sometimes you get balance unavailable on the printout if you do
yes.
that.
Mm,
That's actually the bank is offline,
right. Mm,
but they're going to give you $200 or whatever it is because it's better to give you the money than lose your customer.
yes. Mm,
And of course, in the whole banking and finance space, you can't possibly run hospitality, gambling, or tourism
mm,
without cards and goodness knows. When we had that fire I mentioned that was inconveniently 8 kilometres from my home, uh, we had to evacuate. This is back to tourism again, too.
mm,
We had to evacuate basically the south coast of New South Wales
mm.
during that fire because we couldn't cope with the tourists as well as the fire.
Yes.
And they set up a petrol pumping um, with generators as you entered the bridge at Bateman's Bay from the south. So they did a great job with that, except they forgot to set up the ATM machines and
Oh,
nobody had cash.
something so simple.
So they got the petrol pumping, but
Mm,
they didn't get the finance pumping.
yes.
But, but the ever resourceful Australians, what did they do? They took photos of people's credit cards and billed them later
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Just a way to.
because we had to get them out of the south coast.
Yes, yes, yeah. So let's use our initiative. Let's think of something else that we can do without being bogged down in procedures and policies and well, we couldn't possibly do that. So sometimes a way or a fortuitous way is through to avoid, well, when you're in that high risk situation, is to think outside the square.
Yeah, so even though the SES are very good people, they thought about pumping the petrol. They
Mm,
didn't think about the banking and finance.
yes, yeah. Mm,
But for instance, if you'd asked, say, a service station reception person, that would have been one of the first things they thought of.
yes. How are they
Everybody
going to
pays with a
pay?
credit card. How are they
Yes.
going to pay?
Yes, yeah, yeah. And that
So there
comes
you
back.
go. So
Sorry.
these are things you might think you can't do anything about. You can't control the banking and finance system, but you might have a phone so you can take photos.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
you might be wise enough to set the generator up to run the FPOS machine as well.
yes, yeah. And that comes back to having that discussion with your team. Because if that was that frontline person, that would have been the first thing they said. And all right, we learn from that. We learn what has happened and therefore, prepare and be able to handle that situation in the future. Chris, we could talk all day, and I know you've got
Very good.
so much knowledge, but on this last slide here, you've got here about learning more about risk reduction for your business and some amazing free resources that you've got here. So you've got Google or another search engine risk assessment template. Lots of free resources and how to guide, including step-by-step guides from AI. Business.gov.au. Now that's here for my Australian listeners. Other governments, agencies, service providers, and professional associations globally, such as RMIA, which is Risk Management Institute of Australasia. In the USA and Canada, ProSite has a finance sector focus, which is prositefa.org/about us, but is committed to training and education in risk and more. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us, Chris, about risk and risk management?
Well, as we've discussed a number of times, bring your people into it. You
Yes.
don't necessarily need expensive people like me to do it for you.
Mhm.
It's much better to bring the resources of the people that you already have on board, bring them into
Yes.
it.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
the final slide there is, you can always contact me. So if you
Oh,
can't
yes.
find some help, if you can't find some help, Googling or my husband's a Firefox person, just hop on and ask me. I'll find something for you or someone to help you. So, for example, Rimia may not directly help you. They'd advise you to do a course, but they might refer you to service providers like me or other colleagues who could help you. And often it doesn't take long to get the juices started in the risk management space.
Yes.
Sometimes it's just facilitating a workshop, getting the right people in the room, making it vertical. Back to that point about if you'd actually asked a service station counter
Yes.
operator, what
Mm.
do you need? They would have said, oh, everybody pays with credit cards.
Yes, yes. Something so simple. So I put that slide back up again. Sorry, I was too quick to go exit because I wanted to get back to your nice smiling face and close up for YouTube. But it's got that information there about Chris's email as well as connecting with her on LinkedIn. But Chris, I will certainly put those links in the show note for everybody to connect with you and ask those questions. Thank you so much for your time today. I greatly appreciate you sharing your knowledge and expertise that covers decades and what you're doing now, both here in Australia and globally. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michelle, and all the best to your viewers and listeners. Remember, do it yourself first if you can, because it'll be a great corporate team building opportunity. You'll
Yeah,
learn a lot.
definitely. Otherwise, that could be the first starting block, or contact people like Chris who know exactly what you need and perhaps can see it and will definitely see it from another point of view as well as having that knowledge. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Michelle.